So yeah, welcome to the live demo today, guys. Happy Sunday, and thank you so much for your interest in our water shenanigans. We're here with Steven on a Sunday afternoon here in Vegas. It's 1 p.m. where we're at, and I hope you guys are having a nice Sunday. So I'm gonna let a couple folks trickle in from, Tikira's water account and over the Tikira's account, and then just settle in and we'll have a good time today. um, Today's demo is like a bookend of over a year and a half of research that we've done and development that we've done for Tikira's water. It means a lot to us that you guys are here. We've had so much help from a lot of you in the chat so far already. So thank you so much. And I'm just gonna give it a couple seconds for people to kind of like filter in and find their seats virtually. And maybe I can remove my presentation voice. I'm seeing Chris join us, and Jeremy, and Delphine, Ramsden Edward, the Tea Potato, Steep Tea, Joe, welcome. And thank you so much again for joining us. Grab a friend if you'd like to, the nerdy tea friend, if that's not you, the other one that's nerdy, yeah, go get them. Go get them. And today, I'm just going to set up kind of like what we're doing. I'm going to show you what these guys are all about. While this is like a product demo, if you are just interested in general in terms of like water chemistry in tea, how to pull flavors from tea, and just how to get more mileage out of your teas, I think that you should just stay. We're not very pushy people. If you like what we're selling, I mean, go get it. But there are also so many ways you can make this at home that we try to be really open about, just kind of sharing the knowledge. So that's kind of what we're all about, and yeah, sit tight. We're going to be showing you how to use these droppers. We'll talk a little bit about the chemistry of water and tea and why this stuff works. And then we will do a demonstration using a sencha that I picked up from Japan during my time there. It's a couple days, This is the one tea I picked up when I was in Japan. I was too busy eating. But this is a Shincha. Now it's an Ichibancha. It's not new anymore. But this is a first harvest green tea that I will do a side-by-side of our two formulas to see what the differences are and just kind of just try to help us kind of explain what is going on in these waters that is making these teas different. If that sounds good, thank you. And yeah, let's get started. Friends, Roth, it's so nice to see you. Musubi Envelope, Gongfuma, Titoken, welcome. Question from Titoken is, where do I get these? Waitlist, folks. If you've signed up for the waitlist, we've sent you an email over the last couple of days letting you know it's coming out next week. So waitlist folks will get these droppers available to them next week. We're not doing this huge push on social media because I am not good at that. I don't make a lot of rah. So, if you're on the waitlist, please sign up for it if you haven't yet. We'll be sending a link to the shop that's opening on Tuesday. And yeah, we just want to share this with our really, really close friends, just a dedicated group first, because I want to test to see how it goes. I want to make sure that this formula is good for more than just us. We've done this already so far. We've just sent it out to our really close friends who've tested it out, kind of, ironed out the kinks with us. So for that, we're really grateful. But that's awesome because this T-Curious kind of system, product, ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, just fun stuff, has been built not just by me and Steven, but by also, our friends in tea who've helped us kind of like refine the formula, make sure everything works. Just tea people, So yeah, you guys good? Sounds good. All right. Welcome, Joni and Compostable Refills. Yeah, Esther, Ty, welcome. Yeah, go grab your tea friends if they haven't come in already. So, let me put on my demo face. What's the demo face? Here's water. Okay, so, yeah, let me tell you a story about this girl who loved tea so much that when she would go into her high school calculus class in the morning, she would bring a thermos of Earl Grey and teacups on a saucer in the morning in AP chemistry, AP calculus. Man, I was such a nerd back then. That's me, by the way. I loved tea so much that I would bring tea everywhere. And I think for about a span of 3 years, I didn't drink anything but tea. You guys know that feeling when you're just new to tea and you're just absorbing everything possible. Like you got books of this stuff and blog posts and you're like reading everything in the tea forums. That's me. For about 4 years, I was studying tea really, 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 like, dedicated. And I'd heard through the grapevine that water was important. On a forum, I saw someone be like, yeah, like, Volvic is good for tea, or like, oh, Crystal Geyser, it's good for tea. And I'm like, sounds good. I heard that Lu Yu, like Tea Sage of Tea, was really into water. Cool. I didn't know it applied to me. So lo and behold, the first time that I used a bottled water to brew my tea here in Vegas, our tap water is so hard. Our tap water is like, if you use a TDS meter, you guys know what this is. It's not a pregnancy test. This is a TDS meter. This will tell you how many minerals is in your tap water. When we put this baby under our tap, it reads like 400 to 500 TDS. Total dissolved solids, how many minerals there are in your water. It tells us it's 400 to 500 in Vegas water. To compare, somewhere else, like Seattle area, Pacific Northwest, you guys are at like 30 to 40. Taiwan goes from like 30 to 200, I think New York is pretty soft too, like maybe below 100. Our folks in Canada, I think you guys are on like the 100 to 150 in like the Quebec area. Yeah, so like, yeah, it's hard water. And I just could not believe the difference that the water is making. And this is why we got so passionate, angry about this. I did. I was like, holy shit. Like, I'd invested so much into my gaiwans and my books and my tea. Sometimes, like, not liking a tea that I saw on a vendor's website because the notes weren't there that the vendor was talking about. And I thought it was me. Or maybe the vendor was BSing me, or I'm not brewing things correctly. But really, a lot of it just could be your water, I was just so mind blown. And I'll show you that today. I don't want to be all talk and, and not show you. That's what we like to do here at Tea Curious. So for those of you who haven't met us, Stephen and I have been doing this tea stuff for a while now. I've been studying tea since 2010. I've been working in the industry since 2014. And then Stephen came in. We do tea education. We like to share tea, share what the things that changed our lives, because tea did change my life. I met Stephen at a workshop and, yeah, asked him out 2 years later. So that's our story. So what I mean by that, all I mean by this is that moment when you're looking at your tea and you're like, holy shit, is it not my palate or my brewing skill that's changing the tea, but the water? It just feels like such a small, like, insidious problem. It's like, man, like, I'm such a dedicated, studious tea brewer. I do my job. I research this shit. I read what the vendor tells me. I follow the brewing instructions. I read the books, like the Poor Tea Ancient Caravans and Urban Chic book, and like the Camellia Sinensis Terroir book. I know you guys have these books. Darjeeling, Tea and Nerd's Eye View. You read all these books and then it's your fucking water that's like changing the taste of your tea. That's the problem that we have. So that's why we make this stuff. Yeah. To try to like fix this problem of we want to get to the heart of the tea. But in the middle, there's so many factors that might be stopping us from getting the best out of our teas that we know we want to bring out. Like, we have the dedication to do it, but there might be a blocker, and that blocker might be water. So yeah, that's my like, my pitch. I'm gonna have my presentation voice on because I want to, talk about this stuff in like a straightforward way, but I hope that makes sense. And from there, let me show you how this works. Yeah. So you might notice that there are two bottles I have side by side. So this is what we call our, maybe you guys can help me name these. They're called dropper duos. You have to have both of them, okay? So what's inside? This stuff is just a mineral concentrate that I've copied from our favorite waters to put inside a dropper. And there's two of them, okay? Because you basically get the building blocks of any natural water in the world. You get, this is A, so you have like little markers, A and B. It's not, it's blurry, but that's focus. Okay. Trust me, it's A and B. A and B, so we're going to talk about some like, just open your chemistry ears a little bit. Trust me, like I'm not like a core chemistry person by heart, but it gets really interesting when it gets applied to tea. A is calcium and magnesium, okay? And B is sodium and bicarbonate. Okay, I'm like, oh my gosh, minerals. if you look at the back of an Evian bottle, it's my favorite thing to do. Evian, okay? Fancy Swiss Alps water made by the French. Oh, it's the French Alps. Oh, damn. Sorry, French friends. It's actually the French Alps. I had no idea. So if you look at the back of an Evian bottle, it's blurry. But all this here, this is like saying we have got calcium and magnesium and sodium and potassium. All the same things that are in our water. We kind of basically copied what's in natural water and put them inside these bottles. And by doing that, we've basically been able to copy any mineral water that we want. So remember when I was like, oh, I use the bottled water and compared it to my tap water, and the bottled water is so much better. You can just copy the bottled water, is what our idea is. And then once you understand what's happening, you can kind of control the flavor of your tea. Do you want your tea to be more bright and grassy and floral, or do you want your tea to be more like chocolatey and bassy and smooth? It just depends on what you want to do. You know, yes, your teaware matters, absolutely, and like your brewing technique and you know, but just if you're missing a piece to make that really like come out strong, it might be your water. So all those things are important. I just want to help you with the water part because I think you guys have kind of like played around with the clays and the brewing parameter. I know you guys have, you know, worked hard on this. So how you use this is we got A and B. I have two formulas here. So we have our original. Okay, this is the formula that we came up with that I think Chris was saying he saw the article that came out last year. This is the Tea Curious open source water formula. This is the one that we're like, we want everyone to have it. This is the original formula. And this is the new formula that we're calling Autumn. So original and Autumn. I'm going to start with original to show you how it works. And then I'll show you Autumn with the same tea to see how it works, basically. Yeah. And then, yeah, while we do that, let me know how you guys are doing. So,
use Autumn.
What's that?
Use Autumn on that one, and I'll use normal on that one.
Okay, sounds good. So you have two droppers. Okay, so if you go to the shop on Tuesday, you'll get two droppers. And all you need to do to add to this is get a 1 liter of purified water. So purified water, you need this for your formula because this is a blank water. So we talked about minerals inside water, right? Purified water is nothing inside. So this is you might have heard these terms: distilled water, reverse osmosis water, deionized water, demineralized water. And if you guys are coming in from a different country, thank you so much for bearing with like learning about this stuff in English. Oh my goodness. Maybe it's a different word in your language, but the water with minerals taken out, distilled water, this is the stuff. That's just, as an umbrella term, I'll call it purified water, okay? Whichever one you use, it's kind of okay. Like we've tried distilled, we've tried reverse osmosis. It's the same concept. It's basically water with everything taken out, so you can be the artiste and like design what the minerals are inside with this blank canvas. Does that make sense? We get ours from like the grocery store. So when we go groceries, we just fill up on like a big bottle of purified water. It's much cheaper than like bottled water, and we just reuse our bottles. So 1 liter of purified water. Shake these guys. And there's two bottles, right? So start with A. So this is the Autumn formula. And then on the inside are marked. Let's see if I can show you guys. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there. Okay. You can see that there's like markers on the dropper. Let's say 1 ml, 0.75 ml, 0.5 ml, and this will basically help you measure out how much you need. So for 1 liter of water, okay, you just need to put 1 ml of the drops. So shake it up, put up 1 ml, perfect, and then put that in your water. Okay, and you might be like, oh my gosh, what is that? Why is it white? That's calcium. Calcium is a natural mineral that occurs in all natural waters. Magnesium is the same thing too. It's a little bit, you know, I acknowledge it's a little bit like quirky at first to like squirt like water into your brewing water. I'm gonna acknowledge that. It's a little bit weird at first, but just like the first time you pick up a gaiwan and like you try to use it, it might not feel super intuitive at first, but we're basically making a natural like water profile with the bottles. The same thing with the B. So there's 2 bottles. This is B now. The sodium and bicarbonate and potassium. Just different minerals that do different things for tea. And then I'm putting 1 ml and squeezing it down. Okay. And that's basically done. Yeah, so I've made water that's 60 TDS. It's mineral water. So, I can tell you how much calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and bicarbonate are in this water, just like the Evian, and it's real water without having to like buy it in a plastic bottle, which, screw those guys. That's why we love this so much. And then you put this into your kettle like usual, and it's just water. So yeah, it's pretty, at the heart of it, it's pretty simple. It's taken us a long time to figure out how to get this to work, but that's it. And shout outs to those of you who had to do this without the dropper bottles. Oh my gosh. Can I get a raise of hands of someone who's done the Tikira's water formula without a dropper bottle? A moment of silence for these brave heroes. What I mean is, last year when we first released this formula, we were like, yeah, let's get everyone making water. Get a milligram scale and a tiny spoon and all these salt and weigh it out manually to put into a liter every single time. Okay? Anyone? I'm seeing a lot of y'all who have done this. All of water wizardry, we did a course on water, a very deep diving course on water last year. Oh my gosh, all of us were doing it manually with a milligram scale. So this is what came out of water wizardry, that course where all of us kind of suffered a little bit through that process. I remember I see Jeffrey McIntosh, we did like a class for your group, Jeffrey, on Patreon. And like, I remember Jeffrey having to like slowly move the spoon, put it inside the water. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is it gonna be okay? Oh my gosh. So it's much easier doing this now. Guys who've done this before manually, can I confirm this is much easier? If you still want to do that, absolutely don't worry if you want to do that, but I think it's easier. It's honestly easier. So now I'm boiling my water. And we will brew sencha with it. Yeah, now it's ready. Yeah. So let's see. I gotta catch up with the questions. So far, I just talked to you about like where we came from, and we've showed you how to do the formulations. Steven is so wonderful and has like questions saved for me. So Gongpama asked us, does the formula change when using different minerals? Example, clay, iron kettle, and clay teapots. Yes. So Gongpama is asking, if you use this water, will it change if you're using for example, Ishi teapot, like a June pot, or like a Japanese clay pot like Tokoname or Banko, or if you're using a glazed porcelain gaiwan, will it change the formula? T-Wear Olympics friends. Shout outs. Yes, the formula will change very, very slightly. And this is what I like about the Tikira's formula, is that it will not carry you. It will not be the number one answer to all your tea problems. You are still in the picture. The Tikira's water is just here as one of your tools. It's just like one tool on the tea table. It's like your chasen. You use your chasen for matcha, but you still need a chawan, right? It's like a pour pick. You need a pour pick, but it's not going to do everything for you. Treat these bottles like another tea tool. They will help you get to your result with everything else that you know and everything else you use. And I say that because when you then pair the water with a tokoname pot, tokoname pots have a little bit more iron in them. Iron is another mineral. It's another like just element in a water that can be there and change the taste of tea. So then once you use this water, you can also test it out with how it tastes in different pots, because you might see a difference in the flavor once that water interacts with what's inside your pots. Again, it's just like regular water, and regular water will change based on which pot it's put in. The tea will change flavor. So you can kind of mix and match, you got your water, and then you can kind of like figure out which of your pots you like that water with. What is nice about the Tikira's water formula is that because we're starting with purified water, there's no like heavy metals in it like aluminum and iron, and those minerals are sometimes present in tap water, and that's okay. But those heavy metals are we're very sensitive to them. So when there's iron in your tap water and then iron in your tokoname clay pot, you're gonna have a little bit too much iron, and it might be a little bit like intense. I kind of like these guys because I know what's in my water, and then once I play with my teapots, I can be like, okay, I can see what my teapot is adding very clearly because I know my water so well, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that helps a lot. Another idea that I have is, for example, an iron kettle. Tetsubin are quite popular in Japan among tea practitioners. Tetsubin in Japan, you have to think about what Japan's water is like. Japan's water is quite soft. So if you're using a tetsubin, an iron kettle in America or, Europe or Canada, where a lot of us have harder water, you might get a different result than the folks who are using tetsubin in Japan. So, I personally never tested our recipe with a tetsubin, but I know intuitively that I would want to test a tetsubin out with a lighter water that's more similar to Japanese water than a hard water. If you really want to capture that Japanese brewing water sense, you know what I mean? You just have control over it is basically what that is. There's no right answer as to what to do, but at least you have control over your water now with these droppers. Okay, so I'm just weighing up my sencha so I can show you guys instead of just talking about it in theory. Theory's fun, but practice is better. Yeah. Esther is asking, what made you go with these particular measurements? Esther, do you mean particular measurements with the minerals of the droppers for the recipe? Yeah, I'm gonna ask her just to just double check. Let's see. Yeah. I also saw someone ask, is there going to be a capability to do custom waters? Yes, so this is my formula that I like. Me and Steven made it. We like it.
Lots and lots of testing.
Lots of testing, spreadsheets and
adjustments.
So many Google Sheets.
Milligrams.
A lot of yelling
yeah.
Steven, did you write down those notes? No. Why not? And Steven being can you stop writing? Can you write down your notes? No. Why? Taste this, taste that. Oh my gosh. So hundreds of hours of testing. I think we're in the hundreds of tests now and hundreds of journal articles, both about tea and water chemistry and tea flavor chemistry. So a lot has gone into these bottles, but I just wanted to simplify it so that you can start playing around with it too. So, I put in 1 ml of each into a liter of water. What if you don't like that formula? You don't have to throw the droppers against the wall. Just go 0.75 and see if you like that. Or 0.5, lower the dose a little bit to see if you like that. Or maybe go 1 ml and 0.75 ml to see what you like. And what you're basically doing is, if any of you have ever done a side-by-side with bottled waters from the store and you have to walk out of the store like a crazy person because you have 16 different bottled water brands. I've done that. It felt pretty badass actually at the time, but it gets kind of old afterwards. You're just basically able to tweak your water on the fly without having to buy those bottles of water. Okay, so we have Autumn here, and we have Original on our other kettle. So these are waters that we've made. And then I saw Joe was saying that the very obvious thing about water is that it's 98% of the tea that we brew is water. Which is, yeah, it's true. It's it does a lot to a tea. Water is the way that we communicate with the tea leaves. We don't have small enough fingers to yank out the flavor compounds from a tea. So now talking about tea and water chemistry and flavor, when we're brewing a tea, you can adjust the heat, you can adjust the steeping time, yes. Those are very important. But what about the minerals in your water and how they're interacting with the flavor compounds inside the leaves and in the cup? That's what a lot of us don't know about. That's what I didn't know about until 2 years ago. I was experimenting blindly with water for a long time. I knew that there was a taste difference, but I didn't know why. And what it is that based on the mineral composition of the waters, they will interact with the tea in different ways. So let's say you have more calcium in your water, that's going to change the way your tea tastes. Let's say you have more sodium in your water, that will change the way the tea tastes. Let's say your water is a higher pH, that will change the way your tea tastes. And this is only a bad thing if we don't know about it. I feel like it's very frustrating to me thinking about the many years I spent being really, really careful about my brewing parameters, not knowing that the pH of my water was just blowing up like my tea. You have that awareness now, and I'll show you what happens, I guess, with these guys. You guys doing okay? Am I like? I'm trying to talk a little bit slower than yesterday. We're a little bit more relaxed today. Let's see. So Esther was saying also, so the particular measurements in the recipes are based on what we like to taste, and she's asking if there will be different formulas for green, black, oolong, etc. Yes and no. These are already different formulas for different teas, is the secret. And the missing component that I feel like this whole time has been, people don't understand when we talk about water is that you are very important as a component. Your preferences will shape which water it is that will be good for your green tea and your oolong tea and your black tea, because everyone likes something different. So yes, we will come up with different formulas, but ultimately it's you who will decide which one you like for different kinds of teas. Let's try this out though. Yeah. So we got our 2 grams of sencha. This is a what's this tea again? This is a Kagoshima Sencha. It's a first harvest green tea from like 2018, I think. It's an older green tea, but it's still good. We tried it not too long ago. And now I'm gonna like try to just carefully pour them the same way, just so we can do a side by side of them. So on your guys's right is the original, and on your guys's left is the autumn formula. Right? Yes. So I'm gonna keep these beside myself so that I don't forget which one it is. And we should be seeing a color difference even, and then a difference in the taste and like the aroma and the texture of the teas. Can I get like a little like spoon?
A spoon?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
1 or 2?
2. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So at least to answer your question, Esther, the original formula, this one here on your right, it's flipped for me. So if I mix it up, please forgive me. I'll try to keep it straight. But this one on your right, this is the original formula. I honestly like these better for lighter teas. Green teas, white teas, and green oolongs. And the autumn one on your left, I like better for darker teas, which is why we called it autumn. But honestly, we have seen friends like autumn better for green tea. We did like
And they are not wrong.
blind taste test with our friends with different taste preferences. And I don't want to tell you, no, you should use autumn for green tea or for black tea or for pour. Don't tell me what, don't let me tell you what to do with your tea. Besides to just use good water, it just depends on what you like, basically. And yeah. Can you guys see the color difference happening already? I wish that Instagram had better like color fidelity. The original is lighter and the autumn is darker. If you guys can just see that slowly happening.
It's easier to see from that one.
Yeah, this is darker, yeah, and this is lighter, right? So, yeah. And what's happening? I'm going to tell you what's happening. And Esther is asking, how did you guys decide on how much of the minerals are being used? The number one, there's 2, okay. I'll start with 1. And then I have to get your patience with this because the science of water and tea is relatively new. And in coffee, there were lots of studies that came out about coffee water that people took at face value for many years, but then it is not as sure today. So what I mean is, what I'm telling you today, just like anything in your tea practice, I want you to listen to me because I did my research and you can trust me in terms of how much research I did. But if the science changes in the future because someone finds something out, be prepared to change with it, okay? But to the best of my ability, over so many different research articles and so much testing and so much of my own kind of like follow-up, this is what I've learned. It seems like calcium is the biggest impact on water and tea based on how well a tea can be extracted by a water. Okay, let me make that simple. Calcium will change how well you can extract your tea. How much calcium you have in your water will change how many steeps you get, how fast your steeps are, and how many flavor compounds you can pull from your tea. Just based on calcium, which is crazy, okay? So basically, if you're above 20 parts per million calcium, like just 20 parts, just imagine 20 dots of calcium in a water. If you're above 20 parts of calcium, you are decreasing the amount of flavor compounds you're getting from your tea. When I found that out, I was like, what the? Vegas water is really high in calcium. We're at like 70 calcium. So my extraction was very, very low. When your calcium is below 20 parts per million, you get better extraction. You get more flavor compounds. You get just more steeps, okay? We saw this in the literature. I'm working on an article right now that will show you this hypothesis. This is a hypothesis, okay? It's relatively accepted in tea and water science. It's been in published articles. Just no one has kind of taken a microscope to see if it really is calcium doing this. But basically, whenever I have tested tea and water with calcium, and the much smarter folks at the universities have tested tea and water and calcium, the calcium high water is extracting less flavor compounds. So instead of getting 100 polyphenols are what's in tea, right? You'll be getting like 80 or 70 or less, just random numbers, which is crazy to me because you're getting less mileage out of your tea. It's just insane. So that's calcium. And then on the flip side, the pH of the water will also affect the way that the flavor compounds come out. pH can degrade polyphenols. Polyphenols are the most, when you think about tea taste, polyphenols are the flavor compound that define tea taste. They're like bitter sweets and they contribute to aftertaste. And if you think about green tea, EGCG, catechins, ECEG, you've heard these words, EGC, ECG, those are the catechins that make it a lot into like health studies for tea and also that contribute so much to tea flavor. Polyphenols like catechins for green tea and theaflavins for black tea make up like 30 to 40% of a tea's flavor compounds by weight. So of all the flavor compounds in a tea, 30 to 40% are polyphenols. And as humans, we're very, very sensitive to these guys. They're not sure why we're sensitive to these guys, but they think that maybe if there's too much, we don't want to eat them, or like maybe they help us. So, but either way, like humans are very well attuned to polyphenols. So when there's a drop or an increase in the amount of polyphenols in a tea, we can really easily sense that and perceive those differences. And calcium brings out more or less of them, and the pH of your water will degrade them. I don't know what this is. It will degrade them and change the taste of those polyphenols. So basically, you're kind of playing around with what the polyphenol is like in the tea. This is a lot. If you're listening to this, you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get a notepad. This is a lot. It is totally a lot. Remember that this is like a year and a half of us working on this stuff to simplify it. So if you're not getting it the first time, please don't worry. You'll slowly get to know this over time, especially once you taste. The theory is so hard to like wrap your head around, but when you're actually tasting in the cup, you'll start to make this connection. So, thanks for like, bearing with us and learning about this stuff, which is quite, I think heavy and quite complex. I know you guys can handle it, but if it's still going to take a little bit of time for it to like settle in, that's totally normal. It took me so long too, and I still like get used to it every single day. Okay, so right is Tikirius Original, left is Tikirius Autumn. Can you see the flavor or the color difference in tea? Yeah, this one's a little bit more green, and you see this one's a little bit more like yellowish, like yellow, orange, greenish.
Muddy.
Yeah. And it's also a little bit more muddy. Yeah. I guess it's showing a little bit on camera, but in person it's very, very striking, the difference. This is what we expected. And yeah, let me taste this with you guys, and then I'll explain a little bit more. Just try to connect those dots. And all these things, you know, I want to share these with you whether you want the formula from us like to buy or not. I just want everyone to have this information. It really comes down to, do you want to make it convenient for you? Then you should pick up the bottles from us. But if you can do this at home or like apply it in your own way, absolutely do this also. Okay. Yeah, that's Takira's original. So this is Takira's original. I'm starting with on the right. And then, ooh, let me get some water. And then as we taste this, I want you to start thinking about which one might be good for you. As I talk about the flavor notes coming out. It's so different. It always shocks us. Always. So this is a Ichibancha, a first harvest green tea. This was Sencha 3 years ago, but you guys know me. Sometimes I hoard like extremely important samples to me. I picked this up from Kyoto. Not Kyoto. Osaka, I mean. Yes, the other one. So this is a Kagoshima Sencha. First harvest Sencha. Ichibancha. Steven, I'm gonna put you on the spot. What do you taste? What's the difference, Steven?
They are definitely very different.
Steven is a person of few words. He's like, God damn it, Ree. Yes, they're very different. That's enough. That's enough for me. If you're not a flavor notes person, you can tell the difference. That's way more than enough. But if you are like you want to like identify the notes. The one on the right, this is original, okay? This one's more bright and fresh and grassy.
Very enjoyable.
Steven is biased. He really, really likes original.
I did the thousands of tests to develop that formula.
Hey, yeah. So we really like this formula.
The one on the right, I feel like you kind of notice the age. Like, what year is that?
2018?
This could be current year for all I know, right?
Yes, actually. This could be like from maybe last year.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's like current year. Oh no, yeah, it's like December today. So this could be from this year, honestly. Yeah. Like, yeah. This is a 3-year-old Sencha. And this still has a lot of brightness and vibrancy, and you know.
It's very sweet.
It is very sweet. It is very sweet. Wow. And there's still umami in it, which is really cool.
I was surprised at how sweet it was.
Yeah, agree. It's very sweet. Astringency? Maybe like 5% astringency.
But it needs it.
Just to balance it out. Yeah. It's very enjoyable. See how light it's keeping? And this one's kind of getting darker and more orange. It's got like a warm tint to it. If you can't see it through the camera, that's the camera's fault, but it is very, very clear. And then this one, it's good. It's just more like nutty, more toasty, more warm. It's got like a almost like sweet potato taste to it. It's just more root and vegetable. You know, like this is like vegetable above ground, and this is vegetable like below ground. Very different. And then if you show these two teas to someone, do you think that they think it's the same tea?
No.
Yeah. That's the craziness about water, is if you and I get a sample from Floating Leaves, and Floating Leaves in Seattle, their water is very soft. I think their water is like 30 TDS. Seattle has amazing water. They have like glacial melt water or something like that. If you get a Floating Leaves baozong, and Pinglin in Taiwan, I think it also has soft water, you know? Those areas in Taiwan where baozong are from, they have soft water. Like Ilan has baozong. Around 30 TDS, it just so happens. And then you live somewhere else where your water is at 100 TDS or 150 TDS or like us, 400 to 500 TDS. Heavy, heavy minerals. You are not tasting what floating leaves is tasting. You're not tasting what the tea farmer was tasting when they made the tea, which is okay. It's not inherently bad. But if you do want to taste it based on what the vendor is tasting and what the tea maker is tasting, if your water is different from them significantly, you're not getting the same flavor notes. Which is, I want to control that for me, And I like this tea. If I said this to my friend in like Nashville, and they're like, well, Reese says this is like very fresh and it's got a lot of umami, but I'm not getting that. It's kind of like it's got the aged taste on it. They might think maybe I'm like full of something, or something is wrong with their palate. Think about a tea that you've gotten from a vendor that you're like, okay, this vendor is saying that it's got notes of maple syrup and notes of pine nuts and notes of whatever, notes of mango, stone fruit. And when you taste it, you didn't quite get that same experience. It might have been something else. It could have been like your teaware or you that day, or maybe it's true, the vendor might be BSing, but is it your water, yes or no? If you use this kind of water, control your water, know what's in your water. You're not going to have that wondering feeling if it's your water or not. Yeah, so this is very toasty. Nutty, toasty, warm, cool, refreshing, vibrant, grassy. Still tastes like a sencha. My personal preference is it depends. We like original a lot for lighter teas. It still tastes like a sencha. For you Japanese tea hardcores, I think that this is more sencha-like. I think it's more true to the taste of the tea that I remember it. It's more true to the tea that I tasted at that woman's shop in Osaka. This one is good though. The autumn is still good. I think it's more warm and comforting and more like fireplace tea, like by the crackling fire kind of vibes. And I really like how homey and comfortable it is, which is why we called it autumn. So what's happening? Okay. When you're using original, so let's start with original on the right. Original is what we call a high extraction water because it doesn't have a lot of calcium in it. So a lot of the flavor compounds are getting pulled out. It's just yanking it out, like, come out here, which I like. I want more of the stuff in the tea to come out. I feel like it's closer to what the original intention was in the tea. Like what nature wanted. Nature wanted this amount of polyphenol to come out, and the tea maker wanted this amount of polyphenol to come out. So I want to experience that as it is. That's why original is original to us. I like that kind of like high fidelity, kind of like no filter. You didn't put a filter on this picture. It's the original. It may not be as good as if you edit it a little bit, but I think it's more like honest to the tea, which I like for a lot of what we do at Tea Curious. We like doing side-by-sides, we like doing experiments, we like to evaluate teas. You have to remember my background is in tea evaluation, tea sourcing, I would have to like taste teas to like write tasting notes for tea companies, So it was important to me to be able to taste the tea at its heart and what's happening without as much interference. So the calcium is pulling a lot of the flavor compounds out. And at the same time, this is a lower pH water. We kind of copied a famous water in China. It's Tiger Running Spring. You guys might have heard me talk about this spring. It's the famous spring for dragon well tea. It's a very light water, and I was really shocked when I saw that this Tiger Running Spring, which is so famous for tea, especially green tea, the pH was slightly acidic. I think it's like 5.8, where neutral water is 7, pH 7. Tiger Running Spring, which is this famous water, was acidic, 5.8. And it's weird because a lot of the tea marketing, water marketing these days is like, alkaline water will be good for your health. I will not make any health claims, okay? But is it true or not? It's up to you. But, this famous water was acidic. So I'm like, okay, so we actually toned down some of the minerals that can raise pH to make this water not so high pH. It's on the lower edge of the pH scale. And when you have less pH, when your pH is lower, those polyphenols kind of stay intact. they're happy. They are stable at low pH. They don't change very much. It's not by low pH, I'm not talking about like it's not battery acid. It's just a little bit lower than like normal water. Polyphenols like to be at a lower pH than a lot of normal tap water. So basically you have a lot of polyphenols getting pulled out and they're being maintained. Okay, so that's why we like original. It's a high fidelity water. It just kind of keeps it showing you what is inside the tea. That can be good or bad, because what if your tea is harsh? What if your tea is really bitter? What if your tea is really like, oh, like there's just too much in it? Think about teas that might be a little bit abrasive, that might be a little bit too like challenging. Original might not be very friendly for those teas, because what if you're pulling too much of those bitter compounds out? Polyphenols, as good as they are, they're naturally bitter. You know, theaflavins and black tea are the polyphenols, and they're what makes black tea kind of like astringent and kind of like tannic, is those polyphenols, okay? So maybe you might want to use original, maybe you don't, okay? What if you don't really like that kind of like grassy, flowery, like, you know, taste? If you really, really don't like overly bitterness in teas, and you like a more sweet profile and more kind of, we call it transformative, is the autumn. So autumn, what's happening here? Autumn has a higher calcium than original. It's not too high, so it's still a good extracting water. We didn't blast the calcium on it, so it's still extracting a good amount of polyphenols. But it is a higher pH water. How we did that, we just put more of the bicarbonate. You know, again, there's so many words being thrown at you, but bicarbonate will make the pH a little bit higher. It naturally happens in like nature that different waters will have different pHs. So nothing that we did is like something that you wouldn't find in nature. I was really, really like attached to this. Like I didn't want to make a fake water. I want to make a real water that if you found in the wild, it's not like people be like, what the hell? You know? So when you're brewing in autumn, you're taking a different approach. Instead of preserving what's in the cup, preserving the tea leaves, like we want you to just be no filter, okay? No filter is nice, depending on what the tea is and what you want to do. If you want to work a little bit with your tea, kind of like shape it a little bit more and kind of like, you know, just knead it, you know, just work with it, like just move with your tea. Autumn is really nice for that because it will start to smooth out some of those harsh polyphenols. It will transform them. And in the high pH will break down those polyphenols a little bit, break down those flavor compounds, which is not a bad thing, okay? But it's not a bad thing. It's going to make them a little bit more smooth and kind of tolerable and friendly, which is why those bright notes here, grassy, right? Like kind of like poppy, umami notes, they turn more mellow and warm and toasty in autumn, in the autumn formula, because of that pH change. Changing those polyphenols and degrading them. And degrading polyphenols isn't a bad thing. It might sound like a bad thing, but think about tea processing. When you're processing tea, people say, oh, you roll oolong to break the cell walls and like oxidize the tea. Lots of big words. Basically, oolong is transforming the tea leaves, breaking down cell walls, changing the polyphenols, okay? When green tea is green tea, you have catechins, but when you process green tea more, right? When you roll the tea leaves more, when you're just working more with the tea leaves, those polyphenols transform into a different kind of polyphenol, like theaflavin or theorubigen. You're doing the same thing with the water. You're kind of like changing those polyphenols to get a different taste. And that's why when you taste oolong tea, it's more fruity. And then when you taste black tea, it's more malty. Those same flavor compounds are transforming and becoming a different flavor. So you're playing more, you know, with the tea. You're able to kind of like adjust more to it with the autumn. It's less of a kind of just leave it alone and let it do what it wants, and a little bit more like, let's see what we can do with you. It's more friendly, it's more comforting. I'd say it's a little bit more like, I would say it's a little bit more forgiving to the tea than original is. Okay, so I've been talking for a little bit. You guys okay over there? I'm just checking. I have been talking and talking and talking. So thank you for letting me explain this. And you guys have like asked a lot of questions in the meantime, so I haven't forgotten about those, or at least Steven hasn't. So Esther was asking, I think Esther said, what about limestone? And how does it affect tea? I think you said, Esther. Limestone is
Right here.
a calcium-based a calcium-based mineral. She says calcareous. Obviously, I don't know what that word is. Let's Google it, Stephen. What's calcareous mean? Containing calcium carbonate. Perfect. Now I know what that is. So Esther is asking what a calcareous rock will do to water. So this is what's so cool about Tahira's water is it's all based on what's in the wild, what's in nature already. The rocks that you're talking about, Esther, they're calcium carbonate. Calcium, which is the A bottle, carbonate, which is in the B bottle, bicarbonate. Okay? Bicarbonate and carbonate are like two versions of the same mineral. And that's actually why we keep the two separate, is if you combine the two together, you will actually get calcium carbonate, the rock that you're talking about, because calcium and carbonate kind of like stick together and they make the flakes that you get in your kettle sometimes. You know, when you have hard water and like all that gunk like builds up, white kind of like flaky stuff, that's calcium carbonate caused by calcium and bicarbonate coming together. That's why we keep them separate. So if you have these two bottles, I didn't make them two just for funsies. They're so that you don't make calcium carbonate in your kettle. They will actually solidify. It's really fun to see, but also it won't make water. It's a pain to clean. It's a pain to clean. So if you are in an area with a lot of limestone or calcareous, calcium-rich rock, like we are here in Vegas, we're right by the Grand Canyon. Our water goes by there, and like
I don't know.
yeah. If you're in an area with a lot of limestone, you will have a high calcium content. You might want to check to see if it's above 20 parts per million because your extraction will go lower. That's okay. Just knowledge. Like, do you know what's happening to your tea? You know. I hope that answers your question, Esther. If you live in a high limestone area, you'll notice that compared to me, with our original, which is what we use every day, or Japan, your green teas will be more toasty, more nutty, more warm. You'll get less umami if you have a high calcium water because your area has a lot of calcium. Let me know if that answers your question. The tea potato, do you need a minimum amount of calcium in your water to aid in extraction? No. It seems like in theory, based on what we've experienced and what's in the scientific literature today, 2021, it might change.
Ooh, good question right here. Same person too.
Yeah. It seems like the less calcium you have, the better your extraction. So if you want to go 0, you have maximum extraction actually, especially below 5 parts per million calcium. The problem is we put a tiny bit of calcium into original just to kind of like buffer it a little bit, because if you have no calcium whatsoever, the extraction is so massive, it like hits like a truck. It's like very harsh and very like, you know, and most of us have just naturally some calcium in our water. So if we went way too low on the calcium, it's going to taste a little bit too harsh and bitter because there's just so much happening and it's not what we're used to on the palate. But if you did want to have max extraction, you would put no calcium in your water. It's weird. Purified water, like reverse osmosis, is actually the highest extraction. It doesn't taste good though, for a lot of us. So we just put in a little bit to buffer some of those kind of like harsh qualities of like a really high extraction water. And then a follow-up question from Tea Potato. Yeah, if you have any questions, please let us know. If calcium inhibits extraction, would a slightly higher calcium content increase the amount of steeps? Great question. Oh my goodness, you guys, I really enjoy the questions that you're asking. If calcium inhibits extraction, would a slightly higher calcium content increase the amount of steeps? I owe you guys a paper that I'm writing. Someone, I think it was Kim from Sunlands, who was like, when's the paper coming out? I will explain to you what's happening. But calcium inhibits extraction and blocks things. So it forms a block inside the leaf. This is in theory that I can name like 3 different peer-reviewed studies that are accepting this theory, but remember, it's a theory, okay? I believe it, but here's what they think. Inside the leaf, this is the leaf. How do I make a leaf in my hands? Let's say the flavor compounds are here and your water is here trying to pull them out. Calcium gets in the middle and blocks it. So you're not going to get those out later. It's just going to block it. So you'll get less steeps overall. It doesn't slow down extraction so that later it's going to come out. It just blocks it. So the yield is less. You will get more steeps with a low calcium water. So if you want more steeps, if you want more extraction, just go low calcium. I hope that answers your question. I will put out a paper for you guys to see explaining what the thought process is, because I want you guys to make your own decisions, and we don't carry this field by ourselves. We learn so much with you guys, and if it doesn't make sense to you, absolutely like move with it and form your own opinions. This is just what we've seen. So San blends Kim, approximately which pH level is Autumn and Original? Original is around less than 7, like 6 point something. We don't have like an exact pH meter. We use like
a digital meter.
We use pH test strips. It lands around 6, I would say. And then Original lands around 7 below 8. I don't want it to mess too much with like the polyphenols, just a little bit to kind of like play with them. So it's not a huge difference. So don't think that like I'm making you drink like lemon water. It's still within like the range of natural spring waters.
Original is almost green and Autumn is a little bit blue.
Yeah, basically.
Because we're not digital meters.
If you guys use like pH test strips, you would know what we're talking about. And I also don't have an exact answer for you because when you boil your water, the pH will go up. That's a complicated like process. Basically, when you boil your water, carbon dioxide is getting released from it, and that raises the pH. So the whole thing of like, oh, don't reboil your water, it will ruin your tea. It's not going to ruin your tea, but it will raise the pH over time, and you'll get a more kind of like toasty, kind of cooked taste in the tea. So in theory, if you want to keep your tea kind of like clean, clear, grassy, vibrant, don't reboil your tea. I actually believe that. Do we do it every time? We don't always do, we're not always live and doing experiments. So if we're just chilling, we'll reboil tea. But if we're trying to evaluate a tea, like focus, like really like put our glasses on, my second set of glasses on, and really evaluate a tea, I don't reboil. Yeah, thank you for your question. I hope that answers your question. And also, another thing for pH, if you leave water out overnight, the pH will drop.
Neutralize, yeah.
Or neutralize, yeah. So it really depends. Yeah, it really depends on what your experiences are in like your area, yeah. And then going back to the teaware question, if you put a low pH water in like a certain like teapot, it might change the pH, because what if there's a lot of like bicarbonate in the teapot, or there's iron in the teapot, it's going to go up and down also. So for me, I would say don't worry too much about pH. I think pH is important just in terms of like how much bicarbonate is in the water relatively. So instead of thinking about a number, just think more or less. Is it more or less pH? It's a lot easier to deal with pH that way. Because if you try to go like, oh, is it 6.5 or 6.4 or 5.8, it gets a little bit difficult to track in like daily like tea practice. Any other questions? Let's see. I hope you guys are doing okay. Thank you so much for coming through to the end. So Eric from Tea Sleuth is Autumn the one based on the Chinese spring or the original? I missed that. Original is the one that is more inspired on Tiger Running Spring. So original is around 60 TDS, and Autumn is like 120 to 150.
Half dose of original would pretty much get you.
Yes. So now I'm asking you to like start practicing this with us. Original, I like it, but what if you don't like it? A lot of our friends like original at half dose. So instead of putting 1 ml, instead of putting 1 ml, like a whole dose, right? Just go half, 0.5. Okay? And then put that into your water to get a lighter water. And if you do that, it actually gets to the same kind of like region as Tiger Running Spring. I'm not saying it's the exact same water. It's not possible to completely, totally like copy the same water, but more or less you'll get into the same kind of area. So original is the one that we're copying more of, kind of like the very soft waters that are popular for tea in Asia. And autumn, I would say, the flavor profile for autumn is actually found in the research to kind of be a little bit more friendly for like a Western palate. Not to like put you off of it. It's a very sweet, kind of like friendly and delicious formula. But there are studies that have shown that depending on the population, the water preference for brewing will change. So that's going to apply to you too. If I like original, you might not like original, and that's totally normal. That's one of the big things we learned is that there is no. I'm going to do this thing again. One water for tea, it's the one. Like there's no one best water for every tea for every person. Wish I told Ray from like last year that, because I thought that once we got the tea curious water recipe down, everyone would love it. Like, you're gonna love it. It's perfect for everything. Everyone will love this water and love us and love the tea that they get from this water. For those of you guys who have been in tea for a while, you might laugh a little bit, because when has there ever been a tea that someone liked, or a teapot, or like anything? We all have different preferences, which is more fun, So what you like will be a little bit different from us, and that's okay, So it's more of a matter of finding what you like from your teas, and then maybe you'll use original for green tea, and then autumn for a black tea, or maybe an old bush tea would be good with the original, and then, like, I don't know, huang pian, if you like that kind of like toasty note from huang pian, like that kind of like textural roundness from huang pian, like the yellow leaves from older leaves from pu'er. Autumn is fantastic for huang pian, I think. Fantastic. Really, really nice.
It's also possible to just like one recipe for all teas.
Yeah, it's also possible to use one. So it just depends on you. Yeah. Anything else? You guys doing okay? Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope that this has helped. There are other things that we have in the pipeline. So let me, just to wrap up, I want to show you that once you have these droppers, so now thinking about the droppers, you have two options here. Number one, you can either do this at home. We decided from the very beginning we did not want to own this formula. So the formulas that we have are public. Autumn hasn't been uploaded yet, and I need to update the original. But more or less, it's the same. Really, it hasn't changed that much. It's public. We wanted to make it open source and available for everyone, because I don't want financial issues to get in the way of people getting good water. So if you want to do this at home, it is cheaper to do it yourself. It's harder, but it depends on if you have the time and patience to do that. If you can do it at home, absolutely use our open source recipe and do it. But I will say it is not easy. So if you'd rather just kind of like have it done for you, that's where the droppers come in. And yeah, the droppers will be available on the site on Tuesday. Please sign up for the waitlist for these. And I don't want us to have like single-use glass bottles. So let's say you finish your batch, right? This is 50 liters of water. So you can imagine this is 1 liter of Evian. There's 50 of these in these two droppers. So it's a lot of like just plastic bottles saved and just work and unnecessary like shipping of stuff. So get these, treat them like your tea tools, like hopefully forever, because once you get these, when you run out, you can either refill them yourself with the open source recipe. I actually recommend that if you want to DIY. Just get the bottles. The bottles are a food grade dropper bottle with like calibrations. Our suppliers in China told us we would never be able to do this, but we did it because we care a lot about this. Please do not use droppers on the market besides this one. I'm not just being like, like we're the best. Droppers on the market, not ours, are not food grade. They have like a lead paint on the outside and they will flake off. We found out for ourselves. So we did a custom dropper from, our supplier that is completely food grade and doesn't touch the water at all. So the paint on the inside of the dropper that tells you how much, like the 1 ml, 0.5 ml, is on the inside. This is a rare dropper. Please don't use other droppers. They will flake off. So recommend getting the bottles, and then if you want to refill them yourselves, absolutely do it. For us, if you want to get refills from us, we have these compostable refills, which are home compostable too. So even if your city doesn't have a compost system, you can compost it at home. And we put the minerals inside of these guys, basically, into the compostable refills, and you just open them up, and then you'll have like a little funnel that will send to you, and then you just put the funnel in, you put the water minerals in, and then you put a little bit of water, shake it up, and then you'll have a refill for your tea. So I think that, we've tried our best to make it pretty like convenient and easy to follow and easy to stack up. So the pricing, just in case you're worried about that, which I was paying so much for like Trader Joe's artesian water, which is the water I used before this. The droppers, the first time you buy them, it ends up being 75 cents a liter when you buy the droppers, which is, I think, pretty dope. Because Fiji and like Volvic and Trader Joe's artesian and like even
$3+
Arrowhead are like, they're not cheap. So 75 cents per liter that you make with more control. And then once you go to the refills, it ends up being like 25 cents a liter to make this water. And I'm proud of that, broski, because we're not like rolling. Me and Steven are not rolling people. So we really made a product for nerdy tea friends who are not rolling, who want to do better for their tea and have different options, and who are environmentally friendly. So compostable stuff, and yeah, that's pretty much what we're about. Any questions? We good? I think that's it. Yeah. Take a deep breath. There's just so much. I mean, I appreciate you guys coming in and like listening to us the entire time. It does seem like there's a lot to this product, and it truly is. We've spent so many hours, so much headache, so much love though for tea. And what I want to leave with is we've talked about water, but at the core of Tea Curious Water is I know that you guys want to do the best by your teas by whatever means possible. That's why we buy the teapots. That's why we research the articles about Camellia Italiensis and Formosensis, and we read all these things. We want to do better by our teas. I want to take out the water question mark away from your equation so that you can just focus on making great tea. Even beyond the water, we made this water so we don't have to worry about it. When we turn off this stream, when we go back to work, when we go back to our daily lives, when we go back to our Sunday, we are not talking about water because we don't got to worry about it anymore. We trust our water. It's a good friend to us. It feels like a gaiwan that you've loved so much over time. You get to know it. You're like, oh, my water does this to green tea, or like, my water does this to black tea, and oh, I know what my water's gonna do. So when you are making tea at home, you don't have to worry about it. And then even more when you're working a tea festival, or like you're sharing tea with your friends or sharing tea with your partner, and you want to bring out a tea that's very special to you, you don't have to worry about the water getting in the way. You know what that water will do for you. It's not going to drop the ball at the last moment. And that's been the best thing for us, is I've gotten so much more confidence from my tea, so much more consistency from my tea. We buy like expensive teas that are like a little bit intimidating to invest in. We can do that because I know what our water is going to do for them. And if it doesn't work out, I can adjust it very easily. So that's kind of what I want for all of us, is I don't want to worry about water anymore. I want to be able to taste the same waters, as you guys from far away. So another thing we can do is we can copy the flavor profile of, I don't know, like
Montreal or whatever.
Montreal, yeah. And Montreal friends, we can drink tea together. The same tea, let's say from Camellia Sinensis, if you really want to go Montreal. Same tea, same water, maybe same parameters. We will get closer to tasting the same tea together. It's not the same as real life, but a little bit closer. We've tested this with our friends where we've, sent out just, an alpha test of droppers. We had the same tea together, honey, ginger, and may. And I was so shocked by how close it felt when we tasted the teas together. We had the same notes come out because we were using the same water. We were in the same space. Just really cool stuff. And then finally, we can get close to our tea makers too. Let's say you love Nepalese tea, okay? We can look at the flavor or the water profile of what's happening up there in the Himalayas, That's what the tea maker is using to brew their tea. So when they taste their tea after like a long night of rolling leaves and waiting for the tea to be finished and baking. When they brew that tea and they're like, is this tea gonna be good? And I've seen the faces of those tea makers, you know, it means so much to them. They're like, and they think, and they're thinking about us, you know, they really think about us. It's like really moving that they think about us from far away. Will they like this? Will people like this? Is this good enough for them? And they have that look of like wondering if we're gonna like it. Will it sell, you know, but also will you and me, when we buy the sample from our vendor, will they like that tea? What they're using in terms of water is the water from their area. So if suddenly your water is different, you're not going to get that same spirit as the tea maker was imagining you would be tasting when it gets there. And that's for me, number one, I guess the one like kind of like heartbreak that I have in that is sometimes then we blame the tea maker or the vendor for not having a good tea when it might be our water that's a problem. So I want to obliterate that. Let's just take that out of the equation. I want to get closer to our tea makers. I want to get closer to each other. I want us to be more confident to share tea with others and for ourselves. And just water, make it your best friend, make it an ally. Because up until this point, it has not been an ally to you. It's been an unknown. It's been a stranger to us, you know? Once you know it, you'll build a closer relationship to tea is what we've experienced personally, you know? It's really great. So I'm getting all like
Sentimental over here.
but it's absolutely true. So I hope that makes sense. Any other questions, Stephen?
Do you want to have another tea, or do you
I think we're good.
okay?
I think we're
Okay.
good. I'm going to leave a couple more minutes to like ask questions and, you know, any thoughts you guys might have. Stephen and I are not very promotional people. So you guys who like are helping us understand this and encouraging us to share this with others, thank you so much for helping us. If you want to support us, please get the droppers. You know, if you want to help us in other ways, reach out to us too. It's been very challenging for us to like launch the product because we're not very like loud people. We're very shy people. And like Steven is saying, there's a link for the waitlist over on the Tea Curious Water page. He's going to link that over in the chat. Any other questions, ideas? You know, I want to bring in some ideas from yesterday's chat in the meantime. Folks were talking about how like we can copy famous spring waters. So in a little bit, I'm going to release a calculator for people who have the droppers. So you can start maybe copying some of the flavor profiles or water profiles from like Japan or Taiwan or China. I think I have like 12 Japanese water profiles, maybe like 8 Taiwanese water profiles, another like 10 Chinese. I have just one Darjeeling. And basically what it is I've looked at what the minerals are in those tea regions. And based on how much is in your bottles, we can kind of adjust how much we put in to try to copy that water. It won't be 100% the same, but based on like the important minerals, it will be kind of more similar. So you can kind of get to the heart again of what the tea maker is tasting when they're making that tea at origin. Yeah. That's all that cool stuff. Drop it on Tuesday. Join the waitlist. And yeah, we are always here in case you have any questions or any concerns, or, you know, if you're working on this stuff, we never get tired of seeing you guys work on this stuff. It like is the greatest joy for us to be able to practice with you. So yeah, anything else? You guys good? Yeah. You think you guys might like original or autumn? I'm kind of curious about this. I'm not going to be offended if you like autumn better than original. We just call it original because it's the first, you know. Yeah. I think we're good. How's the tea doing too? Yeah, I think we're good. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. So our DMs are always open. It's all we've been working on these last few days. And then Tuesday, the droppers will drop. If you haven't gotten on the waitlist yet, please sign up for it at Tea Curious Water. It's going to happen like right there. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. And this is just the beginning. We're going to keep doing this water stuff and we'll do it together. Yeah. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Bye. Do the thing.